Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for everyone from wherever you are. Welcome to our World Food Forum Innovation Masterclass. This is part of our communications bootcamp. We will focus on total storytelling, using storytelling to build consensus in our food systems. Today we will have our facilitator Alberto Miti from the Lexicon. And this is a special masterclass for us because we also have 20 finalists of our Transformative Research Challenge, our research competitions, joining us, and our 10 teams from our incubator program, the Youth Food Lab, and around 34 semi-finalists of our startup competition, Startup Innovation Awards, also joining us today. Just a brief overview of our work here at the Innovation Lab in the World Food Forum. Here we try to showcase young entrepreneurs, innovators, and researchers in helping us transforming our agri-food systems, where we support all ideas from the ideation base until a more tangible projects through our different competitions. And without further ado, I will give the floor to our facilitator, Alberto Miti, to start. Alberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pablo, and hello everyone. Nice to see you all. It's amazing to see how many we are here today and how many different places we are connecting from. And how many different time zones overall. So really, thank you very much. I appreciate all of you being here. Okay, so I'm gonna start sharing my screen and I hope you can see it. Perfect, I see Pablo is moving his head, so perfect. So before starting, I wanna make a small game with you. I wanna play a game with you. I want you to imagine that you are walking in the middle of the street in your hometown. I see that some of you, or in your town, I see that some of you is in New York, some is in Rome. So try to imagine you're walking in the middle of the street and at a certain moment you meet one person that stops you and say, hello. And you reply, hello. And the person say, look, please close your eyes and I'm gonna put something in your mouth and you have to eat it. Are you gonna do that? Most probably the majority wouldn't do that, you know, a stranger. And so you ask them, okay, explain me, what are you giving me? What are you feeding me? And the person starts explaining it, but you don't understand a word. You don't understand one single word. Are you gonna allow that person to feed you? Most probably you're not. But funnily enough, that's what happens every day in our food system. Most of the time, we don't have any idea where our food comes from, what is in it, where is it grown, who are the people that are growing it. And when people are explaining it to us, we don't understand it, or we are not able to communicate with them. We are not able to understand what they're telling us, and they are not able to understand what we are requesting to them. So it's a paradox, we are lost in translation in this food system, which we are doomed by this issue in communicating and understanding each other. So that's one of the main challenges that we at the Lexicon wanted to address at the very, very beginning when we started our activity. So who am I? My name is Alberto, and I'm Italian, based in Italy. But I'm associate director at the Lexicon. The Lexicon, or the Lexicon of Sustainability, longer form, is a nonprofit organization based in California, in the US. And our goal is to help people to pay closer attention to what they do in our food system, what they buy, what they produce, how do they do that, how do they live, and then understand where the responsibility starts and what they can do in order to create an healthier and better food system. To do that, throughout the years, we created a variety of different programs and initiatives. But our lighthouse, the main tool that we use is storytelling. everything that we do at the Lexicon is powered by storytelling, and everything is based on storytelling. So among the different programs that we did, and I'm gonna go through them very, very quickly, just to give you an idea of what is the diversity, what are the spectrum of things that we do. There are things like our activator programs. An activator program is basically a co-design 6-month sprint, in which we invite actors of a value chain to collaborate together to solve one main challenge of our food system. And through a methodology that we developed that is based on storytelling, we help them to collaborate, talk to each other, define their common goals and their common language, and then develop solutions that are then released open source and shared by everyone. And here you can see some example of this project, and we did them on a variety of different topics, from regenerative agriculture to plastic, agrobiodiversity, food waste, and so on. You can find an overview on our website. This activator, we've been working with a very wide group of people and organization. These are just 3 examples of the work we did on seafood, alternative protein, and regenerative agriculture. And here you can see some of the organizations that have been involved. And usually an activator involves 200 business, like companies, startups, researchers, and non-profit organizations all together, sitting around and working together. We developed a program called Food Icons, that is the first open source visual universal language of food. You probably saw that last year, the World Food Forum flagship event. We had some collaboration with the flagship, but this is initially we are developing together with the World Food Forum and the FAO, and it's a tool to help increase literacy and communication in our food system. And also this tool can be used in a variety of different ways. I'm not gonna spend too much time here, but I'm gonna share the link with you later so you can take a look. We do information artworks. There is a specific kind of photography that we invented at the Lexicon. There is a huge collage with a lot of different pictures all together that are built together to tell a story. And the words that are written on top of it are the real words of the people that are portrayed there. And they are amazing tool to explain complicated concepts in our food system. We worked on books, pop-up shows. We organized more than 2,500 pop-up shows only in North America. Community organized, community-led pop-up shows that could explain some of the key concepts of our food system and how to find solutions in our food systems. We create interactive tools. This is also a project that we are carrying out together with the FAO and the World Food Forum, and hopefully you're gonna see more the flagship event. And it's a game platform to explain the concept of trade-off in our food system. And we also carry out storytelling initiatives that are basically laboratories, workshops in which we gather storytellers, activists, wannabe storytellers, video makers, indigenous people, everyone who has a story that they want to share, and we help them. We give them the tool to share the stories, and then we help them to we facilitate them to create a collective of storytellers, and then they can share a collective story altogether. So this was a very, very brief introduction to the Lexicon. If you want to learn more, maybe we can have a little more time in the Q&A session, but you can also email me and check the website. But today we are here because we want to talk about storytelling and how storytelling can help us to change our agri-food systems and help us moving forward and help us delivering innovations, spreading innovations, and creating a better world. So how do we change our agri-food system? So funnily enough, we already know all the problems that are out there. The problems in our food system are widely known. We know the issues that we have with our production system that is extremely extractive and doesn't pay its own debts. So it leaves soil impoverished, air polluted, water polluted, and that increase inequalities in local populations, and so on. So we already know what are the problems. We also know what are the roots of those problems. The fact is that we already know also that there are a lot of solutions to these problems. And I'm pretty sure that all of you came here with, you already have your own recipe for tackling one of these challenges. And if we go around the world, we find countless solutions to very specific challenges around the world. The real problem is that these solutions are not evenly distributed, in the sense that, on one hand, people don't know what these solutions are. Maybe they know some of them, but they don't know maybe the one that they need. Sometimes they don't have access to the solutions. So it's not easy for them to reach that. It's not easy for them to find the solutions, to access the solution. Sometimes they don't even know how to look for these solutions. So it seems like that the real problem that we have is, how do we let people know that there is a solution, and how do we help people to arrive, to achieve, to access this solution? So it seems that our real problem is not a problem of finding a solution to a problem, but it's a problem of distribution of solution problem. Sorry for this continuous repetition of problem, solution. But you understand, it's not about finding a solution, it's about accessing the right solution. So it's a problem of distribution. And therefore, it's a storytelling problem. It's a problem of being sure that the right people in the right place will have access to the right solution that they need in that moment. And one of the main issues today, I think, in the innovation world, is that often innovators, entrepreneurs, scientists think of storytelling like the last step of their journey, something that they might add at the very, very end, and they confuse it with marketing and communication. And it's something that it's a plus one. It's something that it belongs to the marketers, but it's not. It's a way of looking at reality. It's a lens to look at the solution you are creating and being sure that you are able to distribute it. Storytelling is basically the vehicle with which you can distribute your solution. And being the vehicle with which you can distribute your solution, it encompasses and take into consideration all the different steps, all the different people, the different places, all the different characteristics of the solution itself. And I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on that, but we believe that storytelling can really be the solution to our distribution problem. And solutions, as I mentioned before, there are countless solutions all around the world, as many as there are countless challenges. And these solutions have very specific features. Most of the time, these solutions are place-based. They cannot be taken and replicated exactly in the same way in another place, but they are very much connected to the specific environment in which they are developed. But we can learn something from that, as far as we know that they are place-based. They are people-centered. Solutions are focused on, and they should take into account the people that they're going to use them. Some of you might have a background of design. The rule number one in design and design thinking is having the person at the center. Why is that? Because eventually, at the very, very end, the solution is going to be used by people, and the solution impacts people. So solutions should be people-centered. They're context specifics, in the sense that a solution that works in urban areas might not work in rural areas. And problem that affects, problem that might look similar in an urban area and rural area, let's say hunger, can have very different sort of solutions there as well. How do we make sure that you can communicate that a solution is possible in a specific area without misunderstanding? Storytelling can help you with that. And finally, solutions are complex. They have a lot of different actors. a lot of different actors that interact with each other. There's a drama, there's a conflict, there's a conversation. And when there is a conversation, the two parts talk to each other and they influence each other. And therefore, it's something that you have to take into account. But if you look at this, all these things, place-based, people-centered, context-specific, complexity, those are already kind of characteristics of a story, if you think about that. They are characteristics of a solution. They're also characteristics of a story, of a well-built story. And once you identified your characters, and then you understand what are they doing, what are the different tools that they're using, the resources they have available for them, and the activities they're carrying out, then you can identify exactly the practices, the solution they're putting in place, what is the right message, the one principle, the one message that they are delivering, that they are making sure it's happening in the world. And then you complete it with a narrative, a story. And this is how you can look at solutions, and you can look at stories as well. And we believe that once you put all these things together, practices, the keywords, the right message, the value, and people, not only you have a story, but you can make sure that a solution is successful out there, can be delivered, and you overcome that distribution issue. You can make sure that you can distribute your story. So our storytelling method, we call it total storytelling. And it's funded, and the foundation of this storytelling method is these three pillars that I was telling you before. Principles, our shared values, our goal, our message, basically. Common language, and the practices. And I'm going to share with you today a little bit more how you can interpret, how you can use these three pillars, not only to tell stories, but to frame better and to help you to frame your solution, your innovation, your project, and make sure that you're gonna tell and you're gonna reach exactly the target people that you wanna reach, and you're gonna get them to act. You're gonna get them to make the action you want them to do. Okay, let's start with the define shared values. This is the first step for to tell a story and to also move towards an innovation. You want to know, you have to understand where do you want to go. And most of the time, when we talk about innovation, we talk about solutions in our food system. Even when solutions don't work, it's not that they don't know, they want to do something bad, or they want to do something that it's wrong for the environment. It's just that we are all taking a different path, and we believe we are all going toward the same solution. But there are a lot of very different paths that we can take. And we need to have a shared understanding of where we want to achieve, where we want to go, where we want to arrive. We all follow different paths. All your solutions are following different paths to sustainability, to improve our food system, to fight climate change. But it's important that we shared a common understanding of what does it mean to fight climate change, to build a better food system. So in order to do that, this is the very first activity we do every single time we start an activator, we start a project. We start defining our shared value, the common goal, the final goal that we want to achieve with this initiative. We developed a framework. I'm going to talk about it very, very quickly, but I think it's worth mentioning. A framework that helps explaining the impact that every project has in our food system in a way that can help everyone to communicate to each other what is a common goal and what they are achieving. We're calling it ecological benefit framework, and it explains impacts in our food systems in terms of impacts on 6 key ecological benefits. So every time that we are talking about creating a better food system by fighting climate change, we are doing it looking at a food system that can improve air quality, can improve air, water, soil, biodiversity, equity, and carbon. And this framework for us has been super helpful to align actors in our activators, in our work, around the common understanding of what is the final goal they want to achieve. And once you have the common understanding, nothing can stop you. You have a very clear idea of where you want to go. And then you have to build the road to success. But at least you all know that you're going in the same direction. So very quickly, better food system fight climate change by improving air quality. So we know that our food system is a great contributor of air pollution, but can also be a great source of solutions for our to clean up our air. Better way to produce food, better way to process food can also improve the air quality in urban areas and rural areas. Same thing with water. We know that water, our food system is responsible for a huge consumption of water resources around the world, and sometimes also water pollution. But there are better ways. There are a lot of projects, and I'm sure also in this class there for sure some project about water quality and how to improve water conservation around the world. It's about soil, and talking about soil, we talk about also nutrient density, and we talk about everything that with the soil comes into our food. And again, food can be the source of water of soil degradation, but it can also be a source of solutions for soil degradation. We're talking about biodiversity. Our food system, yes, we're moving toward extreme homogenization of our food systems, but there's a better way of producing food that can promote more agrobiodiversity in our dishes, more agrobiodiversity in our field, and therefore create a series of positive impact both on wildlife and diets. We're talking about equity. And with equity, I mean access to resources, access to the commons, access to and participation in the management of all the different resources that we have there. And finally, carbon. And carbon has been looked at let's say the boogeyman in the past 10 years when it comes to climate change, but it's a vital element of our ecosystems. So it's important to understand the complexities behind carbon, and then of course reduce carbon emission and so on. But it's important to understand that it's part of a cycle. It's part of a complex network of relationships. And once we define the goal, we can start moving toward that. We can start to understand how do we go there? How do we achieve the goal? And this, funnily enough, is also how you build a story. When you build a story, you usually start with the end in mind. What is the final message you want to give with your story? What is the impact you want to have? Think about your solutions. What is the impact you want to have? What is the change you want to make? And therefore, what is the message you want to give? And then you can start building on that. I want to stop for a second here because I'm curious to see if someone here would like to share the message of the work that they're doing. What is the goal that they want to achieve? And let's say that Susan Payne. Hi, Susan. Would you like to tell us what is the message? What is the goal that your project wants to create, wants to achieve?
The goal is to increase protein, plant protein globally, and do it sustainably. That means that we would not have to deforest further. That means that we would take on the soybean market and not deforest and use 15 times less water to create that protein. That is the water lentil.
Fantastic. You know, I might argue, and this is, take it like as a feedback, we are just, having a conversation here. I might argue that what you described me is not really the final goal. It's the middle way. It's how you're going to achieve a final goal. like increasing the proteins, the proteins we can get without without creating deforestation and so on. It's like your path. It's your solution toward a goal, and the goal could be, you mentioned water, you mentioned improving, fighting climate change. That final goal should be very clear to everyone that listen to your presentation or your pitch or see your slide deck. The protein and fighting deforestation is kind of the path you're taking, the dramatic arc you're following, the solution that you found to get to the final point. Because you might find in front of you people that are not particularly interested in protein, but they're particularly interested in climate change. And you want them to understand that, hey, we're going toward the same goal. Our goal is the same. I'm finding a different path, but hey, we are going exactly in the same direction. Does it make sense for you?
Yes, and so in that way, the explanation would be, our goal is to increase protein, that is plant protein, because we believe there's going to be a deficit in the future. So our goal is to create plant protein, but do it in a way that is climate positive, that is adaptive and resilient to the communities that grow this and that use this.
Fantastic. So feed people and fight climate change and improve resilience as a final goal.
Yes.
And this is your path.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Susan. And how about I don't know, let's see, Saba, Shamim?
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Saba. Nice to
Thank
meet
you. Thank you. The goal of my project is basically to save water during irrigation that is wasted a lot.
Perfect. And how? Yeah, perfect. No, that's already great. So you're telling me that the goal that you have is save water resources, and I'm gonna add, and there's one part missing, but because I didn't talk about that yet, so I want you to be particularly careful to what I'm gonna say next, because it's important for you. So save water resources through better irrigation.
Yes.
So water is a shared value that you can have as a final goal, as a final point of arrival when you're going to communicate your solution.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. Can you see my screen? Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So I want all of you to start thinking in terms of when you're thinking about presenting your solution, presenting your work, presenting your project, start thinking about what is the final goal, what is the future that we are creating. Also, because I want to share a thing that I want to digress 1 second. I want to share a thing that I read a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know how many of you are a fan of science fiction books or science fiction movie. But I read recently that there's a huge group of critiques of classic science fiction, because apparently they are depicting the world only in negative terms. So they're depicting the world in terms of what we should avoid and what we should try not to get. And they're not presenting the future enough in terms of what are we building together? What is the ideal future that we are creating together? And this ideal future is, I think it's fundamental, because it gives a motivation for people to support a project, to support an initiative, to support an innovation. I don't want to support something that is going to allow me to survive. I want to support something that is going to create a better future. And if I can create this better understanding of this better future, it's this shared understanding of this better future, I'm already halfway. I'm already with a foot in the door. I'm already able to start to start building a conversation with people. The second step is building a shared language, and I want to start talking about building a common language, a shared language for our stories. I'll start with a story here. I'm sure that many of you know, but until quite recently, actually, most of the religious rituals in the Catholic Church were done in Latin, and actually until, let's say, 800 years ago, most of the Holy Bible, the most important book of the Catholic religion, was written in Latin, and only people that know Latin could access it and could understand it. So there was the priests were sort of the mediator between between men and women and the gods, the divinity. And until one day, a group of people, among which also John Wycliffe, decided to create their own translation of the Bible and create their own translation so that the people could, this intermediate could start understanding the words of God without any mediator, any intermediary. And John Wycliffe created one of the first version of the Gospel of St. John in English, or what was back then English, and could allow people to understand better what the religion was telling them. I'm telling you this because that's more or less, again, what's happening in our food system in a way. We have a lot of people speak different languages, and I'm not talking about languages like country languages or cultural languages or languages of specific country, but I'm talking about words that are different. Like scientists speak, and then the wider public don't understand, the policymakers don't understand, and they try to say something. So it's a very complicated, it's a complex system, so it's very complex also to communicate and share a common understanding of what's going on in our food system. It's not only a matter of words, but also visual words. One of the main issues, I believe, that happen in our one of our enemies, let's say, of our fight against climate change, was the widespread usage of this image to represent the effect of climate change. That is amazing. It's true. Yes, polar bears are losing their habitat, and it is a problem. But most of the people out there don't relate with this problem. They've never seen a polar bear in their life. They've never seen an iceberg in their life. They've never been in the North Pole, or let's say in ice, widely frozen areas. They have no idea. They don't relate with this image. And every time we've been talking about this, we've been using a language that the other people wasn't relating with. They couldn't understand. So the reason why people work in silos, the reason why people are trying, don't collaborate, and they don't move together toward the same solution, they collaborate, they're not acting, is because most of the time they develop their own language and they don't know how to share it with others. Scientists are trying to warn consumers or policymakers about the issues of producing food in a certain way, or producing cars in a certain way, but on the other hand, they don't understand what they're talking about. So that's why it's very important, and that's the second key message I want to give you. It's very important to use the right language, and use the exact language, a shared language that the experts or your target audience, the people you want to talk with, is using. If you use their language, and with language, I mean the words that they're using, the concept that they're using, you are basically building a bridge with them. You enter in their own world. You start speaking their own language, and therefore they start understanding you. And then you can start the change. Every time at the Lexicon, when we start a new project, the very, very first thing that we do is build a taxonomy. We build a taxonomy of words of the people that we are working with, so that we know exactly what are the words that they are using to refer to their challenges, or their reality, or the solution that they have out there. And then we create parent-child relationship. to create a narrative as well. This is what happened. Once you start creating a common language and you're able to communicate complex concepts with the language of the people that you want to move and the language of the people that you want to involve, then change starts happening. Think about what happened when in the US, in the EU, they started to use the word cage-free in eggs packaging. Nobody knew before that, or nobody really thought about the fact that chicken were raised in cages before someone started to say, hey, no, they started to put a label on their packaging, say cage-free. And then they started to understand what did it mean. And then after that, one more step, people started to talk about pasture-raised. And so they started to see, okay, what's the difference between cage-free and pasture-raised? And then they build another layer of understanding. This created a common ground for people, for scientists, for companies, for activists, to start talking with the people they wanted to act, the consumers out there. The same thing happened when we started to talk about antibiotic-free in livestock. Nobody knew that, or nobody thought about the fact that there might be a wide use of antibiotic and all the effect that this would create, all these negative and unintended consequences this would create. But when we started to use this language, when people started to use this common language, they started to ask themselves and then start acting. If you think about that, this is also what's happening today. It's an issue that is happening today in the alternative protein movement. There are a lot of initiatives that, all around the world that are trying to find alternatives to the meat industry. We saw Susan before talking about alternative proteins to fight deforestation and climate change. There are a lot of very different projects, but the problem now in this moment is that there is still not a common language. When people are talking about synthetic meat, alternative proteins, or in vitro meat, they believe that they're talking about the same thing, but they are not. And there's a completely new language that needs to be built. And this is a new place in which this activity can start. When we talk about agrobiodiversity, the language is crucial. Language is crucial to help people to start a change. One of the main issues when it comes to agrobiodiversity is that the language has been used to define neglected and underutilized crop species or more agrobiodiversity-friendly crops. And already what I'm saying now, it's already a very complex word. But those are all words that people don't understand, people don't relate with. And often these words are negative. They have a negative connotation. If you think about fonio in Africa or teff, for the longest time they had they were well known to be the poor people's food, or the drought food, or the famine food. And that was a common language that wasn't helping a common understanding of the potential of those food and wasn't helping to deliver the solution. So one of the main things that now startups all over the world are finding and trying to reframe is to find a common language that could help communicate the benefit of these solutions, the benefits and the specificities of these solutions. What are we really talking about when we talk about agrobiodiversity? What are we really talking about when we are talking about millet and so on? So at the Lexicon, we have a formula for using these words. And I want to share this formula with you because I think it could be useful also for your pitch decks, for your presentations, to think about the words you're using and organize your discourse leveraging on these words and this common language you can build. So we already said that words are the building blocks for ideas. When you have words, you have a challenge, you have a language. When you have language, you can have a conversation, you can exchange ideas, you can build on top of other people's idea. You can make sure that your idea can reach someone else. And when you have a conversation, you can do a lot of different things. You can really start having an action. And the conversation is where the story is happening, and we're going to see that later. Our secret formula is this one. Every time we start thinking about words, we we break it down in these 5 categories: words, evidences, people, place, and solution. These are the main pillars to create a common language. Words. Let's start from that. I already said that at the beginning. We want to use the words of the expert, of the people that are, that we want to move, that we want to act. So ask yourself, what do experts talk about when they talk about our topic? What words are they using when they're talking about proteins? When they talk about deforestation? When they talk about irrigation? And then create your taxonomy. Organize these words in a logic sense so that you understand what comes first and what comes later. And then you can create a narrative with this taxonomy. And I'm going to show you in sometimes how. But like this, you can start creating your common language, and you know that these words are the key words that you can use to start putting your foot in the door and enter and talk to people. One of the most interesting keywords that I found out in our work at the Lexicon was this word, habit. This was a project that we carried out together with the CGIR, the Alliance Biodiversity International CIAT. They had an initiative in Ethiopia that whose goal was basically to, so for the longest time, traditional seed variety made a one-way trip just from the fields to the seeds bank. And that was what was the paradigm back then. So we wanted to save diversity, and so therefore we were creating XC2 seed bank where to stock this diversity. But people were cultivating the improved varieties that they were given. Until one moment, a group of scientists decided that it was time to start the other way around, to go the other way around. So they open up the seed bank, the National Seed Bank of Ethiopia, and they gave back to the farmers that have selected these varieties forever, since ages. They gave back their own varieties, and they started to create breeding program with them and experimental field and so on. And when farmers received these crops, they didn't know how to call them because they didn't have a name. There were 4,000 different varieties. And so they named them habit. That means we got it back. And that was the key word of the whole project. And they started to use this word to talk about the local biodiversity that was happening in this area, and the awakening of the local biodiversity was happening in this area, in Tigray. Another example, think about a concept like appropriate technology. Appropriate technology is a key concept in many cooperation for development programs or capacity building programs, like the fact that you need to give appropriate technology to farmers and population on the ground to help them to access the market or accomplish some tasks they need to have. And the technology needs to be, let's say, human-centered, so be appropriate to these people. And appropriate technology is a keyword that in the NGO space is very widely used. And therefore we use this word in this project because we wanted them to understand exactly what are we talking about and build this bridge. Second step, build the foundation facts. We have our taxonomy, we have our words. We need to show numbers. We need to show dates, amount, distance, weight, relationship, data. We need to show that in the startup world, we may call it traction in a way. We need to show that there's something behind what we're talking about. It's not just a word, but hey, these words are describing a reality, are describing a solution that is having this impact, or we are describing a problem that has these numbers, and therefore the solution that we are implementing are going to reduce these numbers. This image comes from a project that we did on single-use plastic, and we wanted to show how much single-use plastic were processed in this plant, this recycled plant in San Francisco. And for us, it was super important to show to show the amount, to show the intensity of the quantity of plastic that we were talking about. And therefore, if you look at this picture here, we have very clear data about this block of plastic that otherwise wouldn't tell you anything. How many people saw a cube of plastic? I mean, it doesn't tell anything to me. But if I tell you that it's 25,000 single-use plastic bottle in that box, you already understand the intensity of what I'm talking about. So data are super important to support your story. But let's go ahead with this. But the problem is, data are important, facts are important, evidence are important, but people are not moved by just data. People are moved by people. So you need to show who is the people behind your story, who are the people that are impacted or are working in your story. And when you give a face to data, everything changes. And you're starting to tell a story overall, because every story is a character, every story is a people. If I'm saying that it's important to have sources of energy in rural Mexico, because I'm helping rural population to 40% of the rural population to get back to school, is a thing. But if I show you that thanks to a solar panel, this little girl here on the right can have one single light bulb, and therefore she can study at home, and therefore she can go to school, it's a completely different story. I have data, yes, but I have a face that is representing what this data is really doing. If I talk about interspecies diversity, and I tell you that there are hundreds of varieties of small millets in South India, it's a thing. It's an information, it's a useful information, but I don't really understand what I'm talking about. I don't really understand why should I care. But if I show you the faces of all these farmers that decided to save their own varieties of millets and to compete with each other for whom has the highest variety, highest amount of varieties, I already start understanding what I'm talking about. I already start to see how this number impacts on the life of these people. Same thing when I talk about appropriate technology. I say appropriate technology, amazing, very nice concept, very important. But what does it mean? If I show you that these women, instead of having to pound by hand every single grain of millet and having one full day of work to pound, the harvest of one day in millet, they just spend 3 hours. Thanks to appropriate technology, that's already completely different. 1 day, 3 hours, but I see the image and I see the faces of the people impacting. I already understand what I'm talking about. Then, place matters. Anonymity is the enemy. We were talking about it before. It's all about, all solutions are place-based. All solutions are about the places where they're implemented and the challenges and also the challenges differ from place to place. That's why I was saying to, I think someone, I'm not sure I remember correctly, but when your colleague before was talking about the solution, about water availability and irrigation, I told her that we missed one part. Where? Because a matter is, if I'm talking about water availability in Emilia-Romagna in Italy, and another if I'm talking about water availability in Maharashtra, India. It's completely different. And therefore, if I'm talking about the solutions there, I need to pay a solution that solve this issue. I need to put the place there. Anonymity is the enemy. If I talk about a general solution, I'm talking about nothing. And people don't relate, people don't understand. I'm going to go quick because I see that I'll be a little bit late. Finally, we don't believe in behavior change. Behavior change is super complicated to do, and it's something that it's actually more complicated, complex. It encompasses a lot of different incentives and activities and so on. But what we can do with storytelling is have a perspective change people's idea of how of a solution of a specific problem and the accessibility of the specific problem. If we can replace the perception of a story, of a solution in the mind of people, then we can replace a wrong idea with a better idea, with a new idea. Think about, again, the example I give you of agrobiodiversity. Agrobiodiversity for the longest time was the poor, let's say, millet. Millet for the longest time was considered the poor people's food. And you will not eat poor people's food. But then if I present it like a superfood, a food that has great potential to improve your soil health, I show what does it mean. I show what does it mean for farmers. I show what does it mean for producers. I show what does it mean for consumer. Then I'm changing the perspective. It's not the poor people food. It's a food that can help me to fight dietary issues, can help me to improve the health of my soils and so on. And it's about solution. One thing that we always want to avoid is disaster pornography. It's not, as it's what I was telling you before, oftentimes it's not useful to show only what's wrong in our food system. We want to see what else, how can we fix it? How are we fixing it? What's next? What's the solution that you find? And therefore, also your pitch, your presentation should be about the solution. Yes, there's a challenge, but the challenge is one of the character. The solution is the key. The solution is the whole story. So to conclude this part, when we talk about story, we're not talking about an article, a film, or a classic story. Everything that wants to move the audience and get them to change or get them to act is a story. Your pitch, your product, your research can be seen as a story. So you're an innovator, you're an entrepreneur. If you want to be a successful innovator, you start by first explaining your solution using a story, and therefore showing how your solution is impacting and is evolving. What we say at the Lexicon is every challenge seeks a solution, and that journey toward the solution is a story. And I want to tell you a little bit more about what is a story very quickly. Do we have still some time, Pablo?
Yes, we do.
Yes, thank you very much. And I want to leave some time at the end for Q&A. So we've been talking about defining shared values, defining a common language and the importance of it. And now let's see how we go from the common language to the shared value, how we bridge this gap, this journey that I was talking about. This journey is a story. And a story, it's a way of interpreting the world. It's something that it's innate. It's something that we were born with. Let's quickly take a look at what is a story. If I tell you that the king died and the queen died, is that a story? It's not a story. There's something else missing. If I tell you that a king died and the queen died of grief, that's a story already. I'm already moving toward a story. Why is that? Because I'm adding an emotional component. An emotional component, now I don't want to be the marketer. The emotional component is the drama, is the development of your story, is the action of your story. And is what basically takes, is the journey that you're taking to go from the common language, the common set, the beginning to the final goal you're creating. So I want to suggest to all of you, for sure some of you already know that, but there's an amazing work done in the 40s by this anthropologist called Joseph Campbell on the concept of mythology. And Joseph Campbell basically studied all the many myths all around the world, and he found out that most of them shared a common structure, a common narrative arc. That so basically a hero going through more or less the same steps all over the different mythologies and all of the different religions all around the world, and achieving a certain outcome at the very, very end. He called this structure a monomyth, and he defined it in what is called a hero's journey. I'm sure some of you already saw that, but I think this is very important because it's something that can help you also to look at your own pitch and your own presentation of the story, your own presentation of your products in terms of story. Because the hero's journey, yes, it's something that the human being developed in their writings, their mythology, in their storytelling abilities, but it's also a way right now that it's also a structure, a pattern that we use to recognize stories around us and to interpret the world around us. I don't know if it ever happened to you that you saw, I don't know, spots of sauce on the table mat and you recognize a face there. The thing is the same. Like when you're looking to, when you're looking at the world around you, you're automatically interpreting it in terms of story, in terms of patterns that you can recognize. And you can use those patterns to be able to communicate better to your audience, to your funders, to your target audience, your beneficiaries, and so on. So we say that every challenge seeks a solution. This journey is a story. This journey can be defined in different steps that you can use in your pitch when you're making your pitch deck, or when you're presenting your story, but also when you are defining your product and your process. Very quickly and very broadly, we can identify these 6 key steps of a story. Hook people, inciting incident, complications, overcoming adversity, and elevator pitch. And every time that we build a story, every time we tell a story, or we create a project, we work on a project, or we want to present a project, we have to think about all these different steps because they apply also to startups and products. Usually we start with a question, something that hooks people's attention, that makes them understand that, hey, this is something that it's important for you, it's interesting for you, you should be caring about that. Usually it's a moment of great uncertainty, something that makes people feel restless, something makes people feel that something needs to be done. A very useful way of doing it is presenting David facing Goliath kind of situation, a small farmer fighting against a huge multinational company and trying to defend his own rights, or a group of researchers seeing the world is burning and they want to fight, they want to save the world with proteins, and so on. Then you introduce the people, who are the main characters of our story. And here we come back to the thing I was telling you before. People are the center of the story. There is no story without people. And we need to introduce them and tell to our audience what motivates them, what's moving them. How do they get where they are now? How do they interact with each other? And how do they interact with the place in which they are? Why should they care? Why should we care about them? That's the whole thing. So, and I care if I can recognize myself. I'm gonna share with you maybe after, but you should take a look at this movie. I don't know if you ever saw it, Little Miss Sunshine. Beautiful movie. It has an amazing opening scene in which you have a hook and the introduction of the characters all in 15 seconds. Amazingly well done, in which you have a series of shots in which you can understand exactly who's the character, what motivates them, what's the problem they are trying to achieve, to overcome, and what's the issue that is not letting them overcome the problem. Third step, the inciting moment, the inciting incident. There's a moment in the story in which all the cards are messed up. Everything changed. The main protagonist is called for a trip, for an action, and is leaving his status quo, is leaving his home, is leaving, and it changes path. He's embarking on an adventure. And there's a moment that make this, there's a very specific moment that is represented in every story. And also in every pitch, the moment in which you understood, for example, Susan, that we cannot keep on producing proteins the way we've been doing it until now. and a different way of producing protein needs to happen. This is usually called the road to Damascus moment. It is something that comes from a story of St. Paul that is going to Damascus and is enlightened by the light of God, and he decided to change his path and not to have his old life anymore. After this moment, there's the challenge. We introduce a complication. It could be financial challenges, legal complication, lack of technical expertise. It really depends on the story you're telling. But you have a specific challenge you want to solve. And this is very important because it's your villain, is your Darth Vader. And every good story has a good villain. And then there's a moment of overcoming adversities. So you have your solutions. Your solutions meet the challenge and succeed. What is this solution? What innovation are you proposing? What insights did you get from this? And what did you learn from this interaction? And this is the crowning moment of the story, the happy ending, when you're creating a new world, a new reality. And I want to stress this, it's super important, this thing of creating a new reality, a new world that, a new road that is opening up in front of your audience, so that they can see that there's something behind, that they can contribute to. It's not something that it's end there, something that's over, but there's a new life behind that. There's a new life when we start to produce proteins in a different way, or when we start using irrigation in a different way. All these steps can be summarized in what is called an elevator pitch. I think I can really go very quickly here because you already know for sure about the elevator pitch. But elevator pitch is a super useful tool to summarize your story, your solution, and communicate it to people in one glimpse. And it has all the different elements that I explain you right now. So, for example, two courageous Indian brothers quit their jobs and move back to their rural communities where they pool their resources, buy a fishing boat, and learn to fish, inspiring others in their coastal community to return to their traditional craft. People, two courageous Indian brothers, quit their jobs, inciting incident, where they pool their resources and buy a fishing boat. The complication, they have to figure out a new life. And finally, they learn to fish, overcoming adversities. And look at that, a new world. They inspired other people in their coastal community to do the same and come back to the traditional craft. There's a longer tail to the impact. So this is the third secret formula that I want to share with you. And I want to go toward the conclusion with a final message at this point. So when you think about organizing your own pitch and share your work, but for what it matters, also when you're thinking about working on your project, you should start thinking in terms of a story. And that's, again, that's what we do at the Lexicon. Every time we start a new project, what we do is that we start by setting the scene. We understand who we are, what we want to do there, what we want to achieve. In your case, who's the person that, who's the main protagonist? Is it you? Are you telling the story of the person you want to help? Who's the main beneficiaries? And then you start introducing the characters. Who are the other stakeholders there? Your user, your villain, the challenge to defeat. What is the Darth Vader you want to defeat? And third step, you show the dialogue. You show the activities, practices, solution. When you do that, on one hand, it's much easier for people to understand what you're talking about because you're speaking a language they already have, the language of story. Think about, again, a parallel with the movies. Look at these three shots from Grand Budapest Hotel, and they are exactly these three steps that I show you. First, establishing shot, I introduce the scene. I introduce the overall context in which I'm moving. Second, medium shot, I'm introducing the characters and the relationship. And I start framing the conversation. I see them, they are different roles, and I'm getting ready to see what's gonna happen. And finally, close up, introduce the characters and the main, introduce the characters, what they feel, and then I go into the main conversation. I go into the drama, the solutions, and what's going to happen. So you have to think of stories in terms of lenses with which you can frame reality, that can help you to explain and interpret reality, and therefore distribute it better. Your job as a storyteller, as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, is not to tell your own story. It's not about your story as the researcher that is doing this thing. Your story is to tell this. Your job is to tell the story of your subject, the people that you are helping, the people that you are solving an issue for with your solution, of your people. And then you need to speak with their voice. That's why you need to speak with their voice, because you need to reach to them. And again, here I want to, you can look at it in two different ways. I don't want to oversimplify, even though for the time I should oversimplify, but you can look at it in two different ways. Either you're telling the story of your subject in the sense that you're telling the story of your beneficiaries, the people that are going to benefit from your solution, and therefore it's going to be their story. Or if you are, for example, if you're doing fundraising, you're telling the story of the people that have to give you money. And therefore you have to align with their language and their goals. And therefore you're telling their story and how your story, your solution is helping them to achieve their goals. How you, basically presenting you, yourself, as the solution to the problem. And it's all about the story. It's all about framing it in terms of story. So to conclude, you're not the story, but the audience that has been changed by the new information that you're giving them with your product, you know, is the story. And that's the path, that's the narrative arc that you're creating. And I want to stop here because I think I kind of overspoke. I talked a little bit too much, but I hope we're going to have a little bit of time for Q&A, and I would love to hear you more about your project and see if I can help you somehow also to frame your story for the next challenges you're gonna meet in the next few weeks. Let's see. I don't know. Lewis Thompson. Hi, Lewis.
Hey, Alberto, how you going, mate?
I'm good, thanks. So, can you tell me why you're here? What's the project you're going to work on?
The project I'm working on is something to help farmers do better for less. Had a bit of a personal loss and decided I wanted to help others, and from there, it kind of led from that. Asked for some help for some cool people, and now we're into this. Basically, I'm helping any farmer universally turn around and sequester more carbon, use fertilizers at just drastically less amounts, and at the same time even save up to like 1/12, like, so they're using only 1/12 of their water. And from that, we've still managed to almost double their yields and at the same time improve the quality and that kind of stuff. It's been pretty wild, and we've done this from everything in hydroponics and broadacre and just general horticulture type crops as well. And why I'm here today is I just want to get my products out and about, because I'd like to try and capture both nitrogen and carbon and help reduce the amount of emissions that are being sent out. We're even venturing into the areas of breaking plastic down with fungi. Okay. So yeah, that's where I'm at the minute.
Amazing, amazing scope also. Like you're doing a lot of very different things and trying to achieve a lot of very different impacts at the same time. And it's impressive. Do you think that in light of what we discussed in this class, is there anything that you see can be applied to your roadmap, your project roadmap, or the way you're going to present your story to a funder, an investor, or your clients?
It's I think where we're at the moment, and listening to what's been talked about tonight, how do I put this? I think there would definitely be a few more edits, but following what we've talked tonight, it is good to be able to demonstrate to our end users why they need to use it, because we can say, look, this is the stuff that has been around for pretty much since the dawn of time and help plants be what they are today and our climate be what it is today. But due to the impact of certain things like the fertilizer industry, we've now lost that stability and that ability to bank things. And by having them take on that product and that methodology of doing things, we can help return stuff back to what it is. So we're helping show the aim towards the end, what the actual damaging thing is and what the end solution is and how they can actually be a part of that.
Fantastic. So if I can build on something I said before and give you a suggestion, I don't know, an unrequested suggestion. When I talked about the importance of people before, I meant it. Yes, let's show that our solution have an impact on people, and so show how actually real people are interacting with that. But when it comes to presentations and pitching, and it can also make sense to show one person, exactly one person, and show them how for that one person our solution is changing, is improving their life, and is achieving all these different impact. Especially when we talk about very complex and intertwined issues. You mentioned plastic, you mentioned carbon sequestration, you mentioned soils, you mentioned a lot of very different things that for the majority of people don't interact with each other and are very abstract. So bringing it down to one example.
Just one topic?
No, not one topic, because you can talk about all of them. But one person that is affected by that, and one person that overcomes those challenges, and the story of that single person. So it's not about the farmers, but it's about Lewis, the farmer that, and I'm taking your name just as an example, but Lewis that is struggling with pesticide runoff from his neighbors and the issues of climate change and so on, and then he's going he's taking a path that is going to take him to a new reality. This person.
Would I be able to just throw out one little section of my pitch, which I think may just be bang on with what you're talking about?
You want to show it now?
Just one little thing, and it's basically the first time I realized the impact potential of the company. One of our farmers in Perth called, and he'd explained he'd gone from 6 mil waterings a day down to just 1 6 mil watering every 2 days.
Fantastic.
Knowing a 6 mil watering was 120,000 litres, that meant we'd saved a staggering 240 million litres per hectare yearly. Yeah. Is that kind of what you're talking about in one topic? And yeah,
that could be one topic. Yes, but that's exactly it. You have one additional challenge that when we talk about also water quantity, not many people understand that. So you can use you can help yourself with visual or let people understand what does it mean in terms of economic saving with that. But yes, that's exactly what I meant. So focusing your story on one single person, and then you can expand and talk about the broader issue. But you help people enter in your story and create a common bridge, a common language with them by showing them, hey, look, this is what I'm talking about. Let's look at numbers now.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and good luck with everything.
Cheers.
So I don't know if there are other questions, but Saba,
Yes, sir.
hi.
Hello.
Anything? I'm curious to see if there is something from what we say that kind of resonates more with your project, with what you're doing.
Actually, thank you very much for sharing this much information with us. I appreciate it loudly. And I would like to go through all the points before finalizing the project, because I can see the flaws in my project, because it is not up to that mark it should supposed to be. And I'm hopeful that I will come up with a very influential story.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
One thing I want to add, it's not only about how you communicate your story. Of course, storytelling is a lot about communication and is a lot about being able to deliver a message to someone else. But one thing I would like you to bring back home today is also the fact that storytelling can be also a great tool to organize your work itself. So not starting to think in terms of storytelling at the very end of a project, but start at the beginning and think about, again, what is the message I want to deliver? What is the impact I want to have? I want to improve the life of farmers in these areas. Perfect. Then what are the keywords that I want to use, and the most important concepts that I need to use, and therefore people that I want to impact, data that are supporting me, and so on. And then how do I go from the beginning to the impact? How do I create this narrative arc? Therefore, what is my solution? How is the solution going to impact the challenge, and so on? I think it's a great tool also to plan ahead. It's a great tool also to, if you're a startup, to plan your action on the market and kind of do a kind of a forecasting kind of an exercise. But this is my personal opinion.
I appreciate. Thank you very much.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Alberto. We still have 7-8 minutes from now. We see one comment from Susan. Alberto, you want to?
I don't say hi. My name is Susan Pan. I think that Susan is introducing herself.
I've spoken before. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
I just thought that I would add something to the list. That's fine.
Sounds good. But Susan, is that what do you think? I mean, do you think you're going to use some of these tools, some of these secret formulas that I gave you today for your work?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I absolutely will. And I think that starting off with the solution, starting off with the problem and then offering a solution is really important. I speak quite a lot about this project or this plant protein in any case, and I naturally have followed exactly the kind of format that you have given us. So it fits very well into how I present this in any case.
Okay, fantastic. That's a good confirmation then. And
Olivier,
Susan. Olivier?
Go ahead.
Yes, I also find it very interesting because it is like a blueprint to working through the iterative process, as the project is always developed in an iterative way. So having this storytelling flow at the very beginning of the reflection while you are still initiating the project might be very helpful, because all along those iterations that you're doing during the development steps, you are able to know when you have drifted, because sometimes you drift, there is like a project script, and based on the storytelling that you planned at the very beginning, you are able to come back to the rail. So I find it very insightful, and maybe this will have further development of our initiative as well in my team with Nancy and the other who are here in the meeting.
Thank you very much. This is really encouraging, and yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you can look at it as a blueprint of the work ahead. And I see also a question here in the chat. I think it's slightly related to this, because also for young researchers, if you're thinking about the work you're doing and how your research can be applied out there, if you frame it in terms of story, also when you are starting this journey, when you're still in the research phase, if you frame it in terms of a story, you can, first of all, not lose track of what is the lighthouse that you want to achieve, what is the final goal you want to achieve. And then you are ready to iterate as well. Because, a story is never linear. There's always some road bumps and some issues. But if you know very well who are your protagonists, your characters, you know what is the final message, the final goal you want to achieve, the impact you want to get, and you have very clear in mind what is the solution, then it's all there. You can plan the way ahead. And again, we've been talking about consensus. A common language here is vital. Again, without a common language, there is no conversation, there is no communication. So I think a suggestion also for researchers is also to dedicate also some time to understand what is the language that the people they are working with are using. The language of our funders, language of our beneficiaries and the other people around there, because that can help us to work together and move toward the same direction. I see a question. Dear Alberto Miti, thank you for your interactive presentation. Would you share PPT, please? Yes, I think Pablo is going to.
Yes, we will share the slides, and also later we will upload our recording from this session to our YouTube and our website.
Fantastic.
We still have at least one more question from anyone.
In the meantime, while you think, I shared my contacts in the chat. You can find both the Lexicon website, in which you can see some of the work we've been doing on the activators and the classic storytelling, the interactive tools, and so on. My email address, if you have any question, you're too shy to ask it now, you can reach out and let's have a conversation after. And if you want to connect on LinkedIn, that's my LinkedIn profile as well. Maybe I can tell another thing. I can say another thing, Pablo. So with the World Food Forum network, we are also doing a storytelling lab that I invite all of you to check out during the flagship event, in which we invited 50 storytellers from all over the world to join us and tell their own stories of how food can fight climate change, can help us fight climate change. And they are structuring their own stories, following a structure that kind of similar to the one I shared with you. And we're gonna make an exhibition and a communication campaign focused on these stories. So you're gonna see solutions that are already happening all around the world, and how these solutions are impacting different people and different realities. So keep an eye on these, because I think you're gonna like it. And if you want to tell your own story in this initiative, we're super open for that as well.
Thank you, Alberto. Thank you so much for your session today, for the insightful tips and also explanations on how to build the perfect pitch, the perfect storytelling. And if I can summarize one thing from your presentation today, it's not about who you are presenting it, but it's about how you bring the voices of people who are affected and wants to give direct solutions, positive solutions for our agri-food systems. So thank you, everyone who are joining us from wherever you are, and we will upload the recording from today, and we will also share the presentations for you in short time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. You're incredible. This is awesome.
Thank you, Luis.